Hi, good evening. It's Thinking Slow Group again. I wanted to do a quick video about border closures because, as they did in 2020, the government has started again in 2021 with these last-minute changes of destinations from the green list to the orange list to the red list, causing enormous misery for people who are stuck in the red list countries that then have to scramble around last minute trying to get home before the new designation comes in, because it's always announced at the last minute. It's usually done so it causes maximum inconvenience rather than the new designation coming in from a Monday when most people will be back in the UK anyway. They do it so that it starts at midnight on a Saturday night, causing enormous disruption and chaos for everyone involved. And I want to run through why we think there's no science whatsoever behind those decisions, and it's actually pushing another Great Reset agenda item. So starting off with the whole idea that you can stop mutations and variants by sort of fiddling around with borders. This is sort of over 18 months basically how COVID changes in terms of variants, and you can tell, you know, within this period you're ending up with thousands and thousands of variants. And we're just going to cut to a small section of our interview with Dr. Quinn, who basically describes this process and how pointless the idea that you can close borders and you can stop this mutation process going on. That's just a ludicrous concept, and he's explaining in his own words.
It doesn't matter if you close the border tomorrow. I don't think it's even possible to close the border if some person. All it takes is one person, maybe one bird, one cat, one fly, and well, viruses are tiny. There's so many of them around the planet, but it's not. It doesn't make logical sense. The virus mutates. It will continue to mutate. It's already here, and it's mutating independently all around the world. If you close the door tomorrow and think we are done with the variants, that's not true. It will continue to make varieties of the existing virus here.
And so also, as well as hearing that it's generally pointless, it's also worth looking at what the science was before the world went mad in March 2020, and we'll get into why a little bit the world went mad in March 2020. But before then, before the sort of established science was turned on its head, this is from the government basically. These are the guidelines for modeling pandemics from SPI-M. And I'm just going to read the two main ones. Assume no significant epidemiological disease control benefit from international travel restrictions. That's number one. Number two, assume that screening either on exit from countries, regions, or on entry to the UK will not have any significant benefit for considerable cost and disruption. So before March 2020, the science was do not do what we're doing at the moment. Now, in terms of considerable disruption, this is basically what we're seeing at Heathrow, and there's been plenty of stories in the press about queues going on for hours and hours. I think sort of somewhere about 5 hours is the record. And it's put down to sort of capacity constraints, but actually the chart on the left will show you that Heathrow is doing maybe 1 million passengers a month, whereas it's capable of doing 8 million passengers a month. So, this is a sort of almost 90% reduction in volume, and I'm saying this queue is really deliberate, and it's just another hurdle and hassle that's been put in place to discourage you from traveling. And just as a side point, it's worth saying that having thousands of people in this sort of snake queue system where no one's more than a meter or so from the next person, and holding them in rooms for hours on end, thousands of people, has got to be the best possible way to spread a disease if one existed in that room. So, not only is this artificial, but from if you're claiming this is to actually reduce the spread of disease, you're actually doing everything you possibly can to spread the disease by cramming people in large halls for hours on end. It's really a disgrace, but I'm saying based on the capacity of Heathrow, this is also largely deliberate. So then we get to maybe a final point here where you have the Premier of Queensland basically celebrating, look what we've done, we've closed all the roads, and at the same time destroyed the economy, basically. And I think really what's behind all of this, essentially, it's not disease control, it's the dystopian New World Order or Great Reset that the so-called elite has decided to impose on us, the people. And on the left here is a paragraph from the Sixth Carbon Budget, and I think the important word in the paragraph is allow, because now it's becoming clearer and clearer that this elite, I use the word in inverted commas, has decided what we, the great unwashed, are allowed to do and not to do, basically. And aviation travel is in the crosshairs, and I think they've done everything they possibly can to discourage people from traveling. At the same time, of course, you're seeing a never before seen boom in private air travel on private jets. So the elites are absolutely fine. They're flying now, I think it's above levels pre-pandemic, but everybody else, of course, is not allowed to do that. And I think probably the most offensive part of this all is that very many people are concerned about the planet, would happily do things to stop damage to the planet. And the UK already has been reducing carbon emissions for quite a long time now. But the problem with what we're seeing now is this is a sort of dictatorial zealots telling you you will do this and you won't do that, and mainly it's you won't do this. And this level of regulation is going on in every single aspect of our lives. So just wrapping up, if you accept that there are variants and viruses mutate, if you accept what Dr. Quinn is saying, that thinking that you can stop that process by closing borders is ridiculous, if you accept that the science before March 2020, when various foundations, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, got heavily involved in setting UK policy, if you accept that policy before March 2020 actually made sense, and that November 2018 SPI-M guidelines were real science, then what we're seeing now is not real science. And all you have to do is look through this book, The Great Reset, and see what the agendas really are. And this is one of those paragraphs from that book where they present our old way of life, where we sort of drove around, flew around, and we ate things that we wanted to eat. That cannot continue, and we need to seize the opportunity of this completely disrupted and dysfunctional life that we've been forced to adopt, and we need to make that permanent, basically. And this is the social engineers' desire for structural changes in behavior, and then for them the climate outcome will be different. So this is, I think, what this is all about. It's not really about disease control. It's about a dictatorial, out of control elite who are pushing damaging policies through sort of corruptible and corrupt national leaders to implement all of these draconian changes. And just finishing up with an essay from Dr. Quinn. This is still available, you can look it up, it's on the Heart Group website. A very clear 2-page essay showing, and he said here in inverted commas, the futility of border closures. So who are you going to believe? Do you believe the likes of Mr. Zahawi or Hancock, or do you believe actual scientists, and do you believe that what the politicians are doing is actually not science. It's another agenda. It's called the Great Reset, and it's being imposed on us, and COVID is being used as a smokescreen. That is my central thesis for this short video. You can decide for yourself, but all the documents are there. And as I say at the end of every video, the important thing is to stay free. That is much more important than staying safe, because staying safe in a totalitarian system is not a realistic expectation. We must have our freedom, and we need to fight to maintain it against these forces. Thank you very much. Good evening.